Hey everyone, it's Haz here. I've been heavily playing Lies of P and now I'm reasonably deep in the game to have a good idea about the core mechanics and the structure of the game and its combat, but most importantly, I definitely have a good idea now what were the harder parts of getting into it and also what helped me the most towards having more fun. So I've gathered 5 of my most important tips that will definitely help you with your first playthrough of Lies of P. My very first tip is to make sure you put points into Vitality, your health attribute during leveling. This is a standard tip for almost every Souls-like game for me. Having a higher health bar at the beginning just helps so incredibly much since you're too low level for your damaging attributes to matter for now, and the greatest difference for damage are going to be your weapon upgrades instead for the start. So you might as well spend your levels on points that matter from the very beginning, like health and stamina. But in Lies of P there is an additional mechanic to spend your points in Vitality, and that is your Guard Regain stat. Guard Regain will control how much health you are recovering with each of your weapon hits while you have recoverable health after blocking, the bright red section of your health bar. So with Vitality you are not only increasing your maximum health, but you're also directly increasing your healing during combat when you try to get some of your health back instead of having to waste a healing potion. So do not neglect Vitality, it's generally agreed upon in Souls-like games that health will help the most at the start, and in Lies of P you have even more reason to put points into it because of the Guard Regain. Now my second tip right after saying you don't need points in damage stats for now is to feel free to level up your weapons and don't be afraid to spend resources on them. While in some Souls-likes, materials can be quite limited. In Lies of P you can not only grind the upgrade stones very easily from enemies or the butterflies that Gemini reveals to you, but you will also unlock a shop very early where you can buy more at a cheap price. I've mostly focused on 2 weapons and I still had resources left for a third optional weapon to upgrade, and I didn't have to purchase anything from the shop yet, so there's more than enough to use as you play the game. This is also very important since Lies of P tries to encourage players to experiment with weapons. Not only you can mix and match your blades and handles to create the perfect weapon you like without any cost, but you can equip 2 fully customized weapons at the same time to switch on demand, so the game clearly wants you to switch up your weapons depending on what the situation needs the most. As long as we're talking about weapons, my third tip is to potentially prioritize the elemental weapons for the first portion of the game. You will be able to buy the electric coil weapon very early in the first district, and since the game specifically notifies us that the puppets are weak against electricity, these weapons will be exceptionally strong against them, and I recommend buying them. The electric coil will pretty much trivialize the first 3 maps of Lies of P without having to put any points into your offensive stats. I went full health and stamina, and with just the weapon upgrades you will still going to be powerful enough to not worry about any enemies you encounter, not to mention having the strong element against bosses too. Later on you will also be able to loot both the booster glaive and the salamander daggers in the Vanini factory, and the 2 weapons make for an excellent longer range fire weapon that if you upgrade as your second weapon, you will be pretty much set for area 4 and 5 after that, so that gives you a huge amount of freedom on how you want to level up your character without having to worry about damage or being weak at the start at all. Even if you don't want to use these specific weapons though, all I would recommend is to not ignore elemental weaknesses as they make a big difference for making the game easier and less frustrating of an experience. And that is exactly what my 4th tip is, though I know this will be most likely ignored just like in any Souls game, but please do remember to check your inventory and use your items. It might really feel useless to throw daggers and pebbles in Dark Souls, I get it, but in Lies of P you actually have proper throwing weapons of even different damage types, and they deal a considerable amount of damage when you just need that little poking to get down ranged enemies or tougher opponents, especially when some enemy spawns are quite nasty too, and you can get rid of them hanging on the edges or hiding in the swamps instead of getting ambushed. I also found myself pretty much using all my bombs during boss fights, as like I said with the weapons, early enemies are either weak to electric damage or later fire, and the game gives you a good amount of these bombs that surprisingly deal a lot of damage to bosses, so that's also a great help if you're struggling. Finally, a reminder not to forget about using your grinder to repair your weapon as your damage will decrease. And also later on this grinder will get additional upgrades to put different elements on your weapon, so the earlier you get used to it, the better it is. So yes, while in Souls games items can be very niche but useful, in Lies of P it's definitely part of the core design to encourage players to use consumable items as they're pretty darn powerful. And finally, my last tip is for the bosses. As tempting it might look to use your boss Ergo, do not consume them for those 5,000 points. You can easily farm or grind as much if you really want to, and it would really be just a waste as each boss Ergo can later be exchanged for either a powerful weapon or a powerful amulet you can equip with unique effects. I've just released a brief guide for this earlier today if you want to check that out. Unfortunately, the shop isn't available for a while in the game, but that just means you should be saving up those boss Ergos, as like the description suggests, there will be someone who wants them in exchange for goodies. So those are my 5 most important tips I would say when it comes to getting into Lies of P. If you accept my recommendations and try to follow my advice, you should have little to no problem getting used to the game and having a smooth starting experience until you understand and have chosen what kind of character you'll want to play, since like I said, with the weapons and stats I recommended, you'll be pretty deep in the game easily when you have already unlocked most of the major features, and you will still have a blank sheet of a character that can become anything. Now, thank you so much for watching everyone, hope this video was helpful. If so, make sure to leave a like and subscribe as I'll be posting more Lies of P guides and content to keep you all up to date. Take care everyone, enjoy the game, and I'll see you all the next time.